Joining us now, former general counsel of the National Security Agency and senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Glenn Gerstell. Also with us, staff writer at The Atlantic, Tom Nichols. Glenn, I'm going to begin with you. Tell me your take on everything we've learned about the text chain, the information contained within it, and the responses from the administration.
Well, it's certainly been a day of extraordinary revelations, new information coming out drip by drip. I have to say that I think had the White House originally, when this first came out, said, yes, we made a big mistake. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again, and we'll investigate. This probably would not have continued on for day after day. But some of the questions that we've seen about exactly slicing and dicing this very, very finely, was there classified information? Was it declassified? Was it this or was it that? No one was injured, so it really isn't all that bad. Sort of misses the point. The real fundamental point here, very simply, is whenever national security information is being communicated that involves American troops about to go into battle within the next 2 hours, we want to do everything we possibly can, take every possible step to make sure that information doesn't even have a risk of falling into the wrong hands. And a signal chat does not comply with that.
I wonder, does this raise for you, Glenn, questions about whether they're using Signal for any other sensitive information, chats that maybe they didn't inadvertently include a journalist on?
So again, assuming good faith here, it sounds like the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, wanted to set up a sort of a procedural chat. If you look at the beginning of the text, assuming they're all accurate, and so far that seems to be the indication, just to talk about the procedures and mechanics, whatever. And it was Secretary Hegseth who then introduced some extraordinary details that absolutely shouldn't have been there. Whether they're engaged in other types of communication of this nature, I don't know. They certainly shouldn't be using their personal cell phones, as apparently some of them were. That's clear that for government work, let alone classified work, you're not supposed to be on your cell phones. I'm guessing that this is simply a reflection, not condoning it, but I guess this is simply a reflection of the fact that many of these people did not grow up in government, they did not grow up in the intelligence community, and yet here they are placed in positions of extraordinary trust.
But hold on, because a lot of them did have quite a bit of experience in government. Senator Marco Rubio has long experience in government. Yes. And then there are others on this chain, including Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance, and I believe Mike Waltz, who have served in the military. And maybe I'm wrong about Waltz.
I would think
wouldn't they know basic procedures? I mean, aren't you taught that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm not condoning that in the slightest. I'm just saying that the one who initiated this with a dump of rather significant operational details was the Secretary of Defense. I think the others should have been concerned about this, and some of them, such as Secretary Rubio, who knows full well through his service on the Senate Intelligence Committee, the protocols to be followed, certainly should have spoken up and said, hey, wait a minute, we shouldn't be having these conversations on this channel. So there's a lot of blame to go around.
By the way, Mike Waltz was a member of the National Guard, so I was remembering that correctly, Tom, and the U.S. Army. Tom, I want you to weigh in on this because I know you have a long history working in government and also working for the military as well, for the Pentagon. Tell me about what you would learn, what basic protocols you would learn at the outset of your career about guarding information.
Wow. I mean, every government employee is, almost on day one dragged into a room and basically told, here are the things that we will absolutely destroy you for doing. And almost all of them, those kind of basic sins, are all in this chat. You don't discuss operational details. You don't have these kinds of conversations on an unsecured line or in an insecure environment. You certainly don't. And this is where I think, despite the major mistake that National Security Advisor Waltz made of including somebody who shouldn't have been there, as Glenn keeps saying, Pete Hegseth is the guy who really started dumping huge amounts of operational details that just didn't need to be there. But the more important point is that to do that, I was a Senate staffer and I was with the Defense Department for 25 years. There is no way that those strike package details ever resided in an unclassified system anywhere. And so to do that, Hegseth had to somehow sit there and commit the most basic cardinal sin of information security, transferring stuff that is on a classified system to an unclassified system, in this case, the Signal app. That is the thing that more than anything, any government employee would have been investigated, fired, prosecuted. I mean, it is the cardinal sin to take things from an unclassified system and transfer from a classified system and transfer them to an unclassified system. And clearly, Hegseth had to have done that for some reason. I don't know if he was showing off, or he just didn't understand what he was doing, or he just doesn't kind of grasp his job. But he also seems to believe that there is some substantive difference between categories called war plans and attack plans.
Yeah.
That doesn't really exist in the Defense Department. They have operational plans, contingency plans. They have their own, they have their own set of terms for those things. So basically, the administration and Hegseth in particular is just sort of making up a lot of words, and to use another military term, throwing out these kind of chaff bursts of nonsense to see if they can just distract people.
Tom, they keep arguing that this is fine because nobody got injured. The mission was a success. But there are knock-on effects. There are questions now among our allies about intelligence sharing with the United States, publicly so, from the leader of the Liberal opposition in the UK, questioning whether the UK should be sharing secret information with the U.S. because of the way that we handle our information.
Okay, three things. First of all, that's like saying, I got in a car with a drunk driver, but we got home okay, so I guess that's okay. It's not okay. Second, yes, of course, this rattles the confidence of our allies and our friends around the world. But a third thing that people need to think about is that this is a feast. This whole chat, is potentially a feast for foreign intelligence analysts. I mean, when I was a Soviet and Russia guy back in the day, I would have given anything to have had a real-time transcript of a bunch of guys, on an unsecured line in Moscow talking about Russian military operations. I would have loved to have seen the Russian Minister of Defense drop a bunch of stuff, in a chat somewhere and say, here's the exact timing of a strike package and all the things we're going to do. Not just because it has operational significance, but because it gives you an insight into their planning, their thinking, their discussions. There is no way that they should have been having this discussion on Signal. The whole thing should have taken place in a secure environment. And all of these explanations and excuses now are just that. They're just a lot of excuses as all of these folks, and particularly Pete Hegseth, try to deflect blame away from themselves for what I think is one of the most important breaches of military information in modern military operations, at least in the past 30 or 40 years.
And they can argue that they were insecure. They could argue that their phones were secure. Maybe you don't buy that. They could argue that they were in a secure place,
they
whatever.
Can't argue that.
But even if they tried, Jeffrey Goldberg sitting in a parking lot at a grocery store in D.C. and getting the information is certainly the farthest thing you can imagine from what the government would consider secure, even though Pete Hegseth ended the chat by saying OPSEC clear. Or good on OPSEC. All right, Glenn Gerstell, Tom Nichols, gentlemen, thank you so much for your expertise on this. I do certainly appreciate it.